She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Welcome to another episode of 5 Lemons Laughing. Today, I'm so happy we have all the lemonettes present. Woo!
Yeah.
So let me start off by saying, oops, we messed up the Abundance Chronicles and ended up publishing the same one twice. All that is fixed. If you are listening, you can go back and find them on your podcast platforms, and they'll be in the correct order, so it'll be easy to find. And thank you, Sarah, for letting us know that. I so appreciate you.
We love our listeners.
Yeah, we love our listeners.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I love it when my friends come up and give me little comments or send me a text, and just I know that they're listening, and I just love it when you do that. I love all of our listeners. So today we're following up on values. Last week, Melissa and I went through the process of how to establish your values, even start thinking about it. So today, all of the lemonettes are going to go and talk about their top personal values and how they influence their lives. But before we do that, we're going to check in with Penny. All of us have had a mid-year check-in, kind of like where we are with our setting our intentions at the beginning of the year. And so Penny, what were your intentions at the beginning of the year? How are you doing? Are you keeping any of them? Are you letting any of them go? What are you carrying forward?
Wow. Thanks, Amanda, for that thought-provoking question to have me really think about what in the heck I'm up to this year. Oh my gosh. Mid-year check-ins are really good things to do. I just had a meeting at our company today with a group that I facilitate leadership training with, and we did a mid-year check-in also, and it was really interesting. I listened to you all when you did your mid-year check-in, and it was funny how a lot of us didn't remember what our words were and our thoughts were, and others did. That was really great. And I had the same experience today when I was doing that training at our company. So I said things around being light, fun, playful, generating life from the higher vibrations versus the lower ones, and being a leader of love. And we all decided that that's really what we want our podcast to be. We want to be leaders of love. And so how am I doing with that? Well, I can tell you that it is a process for Penny. Penny's in process. And there are days when I do really great and I'm playful and I'm fun and things are light. And then there's other days when I start letting my saboteurs come in and knock me out of the game and make me thinking life is hard and that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, all that crap, all those false beliefs that I am working on totally kicking out of my thoughts and my experience. And I also said that I was going to take accountability and responsibility for my life. I think that's part of it too, that I said. And I would say I'm doing a lot more. I'm doing that a lot better, though there's still times that I slip out of, my commitment to myself. and I go back to my old non-working ways. So it's really great that we're actually talking about defining our values, because when we started talking about this, I realized that a lot of times when I'm not following through and being the best version of myself, it's when I don't follow my values that I have set up for myself, and I'm out of alignment with them. And so I think it's really great that we're going to jump into values. But so I don't have anything I want to leave behind. I want to continue to be lighthearted and fun and playful and generate my life from those higher vibrational levels. And I'll continue to strive towards it. I mean, it's a process for me, and some days are better than others. And my purpose is just to keep doing the work, to keep moving forward, to keep interrupting those old tired patterns. So that's my check-in.
Yeah. Thanks, Penny.
Thank you, Penny. That was
Mhm.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, values. So, Melissa, let me put you on the spot, since you and I did. She's shaking her head no, but I'm still going to do it.
She's
or
just
are you
dancing.
wagging your tail? Is that
I
what you're
am
doing?
wagging my tail.
Here we go. Yay.
She wants to do it. She's
Yeah.
excited.
Just, I would love to, for you to state your values and state them again. And I know we talked about them last time, and then how you start the process off for everybody.
You know what? I'm going to jump in for a second, though.
Yes,
I
please
think
do.
maybe we should probably set it up a little bit in case somebody didn't listen to our last episode about
So
values.
smart, Penny.
Yeah. Because values can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I think we should set the ground where we're coming from. So
Yeah.
I'm sure Melissa can do that too.
Yes, Melissa can do that.
Okay, great. So Amanda and I did a little one-off episode. We're calling it the squeeze, and like the lemon squeeze. And we did a process of looking at our values, choosing values. We used a worksheet that will be on our website, 5 Lemons Laughing. And I think it'll probably also be connected to most of our social media. We found it online, and it just helps to talk about values, define values. It also gave like 200 different words you can choose from. So we walked through that process together on our last episode. And so then we are now here with all of us talking about within that process, or some of us didn't do that actual process, but we're here talking about our values and what they mean to us. And so we had talked a little bit last week in our little squeeze about what values are. And values give us definition. It creates a direction and boundaries for ourselves. And it could also include familial patterns, cultural patterns, that kind of things that we have acquired through our life that has become important to us. Amanda and I also discovered it's kind of some of the stuff that feeds our soul. And so, and we also discovered in our process that our values have changed in our life from what they were in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, where we have some new ones. So I would welcome anyone to go to our website, pull that sheet down, go through this process, and then come back and listen to this again. And so you can, see how we live by our values, or we're influenced by our values, or like you'll see some of them are just how I live. And one in particular is my goal, like is still a value of mine, but it's new and I'm working towards it. So the first one is
Melissa, before you start that, can I add something real quick?
Of course.
I think one of the reasons why it's so important to look at values for me is when we started to, not just in the last couple of weeks, but just in general, like what is important to me? Like, how do I frame my decision-making process? It gives me a guidepost to what I'm going to say yes to, what am I going to say no to. It really helps to clarify how I want to live my life, and taking the time to go through any process. What is the most important thing? It's a really good filter. A filter is the way to do it. A conscious filter for how to how I personally want to live my life. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to even bring values to the to, our podcast.
Yes. And I agree. When you were just talking, I was also saying to myself, it's like a filter. It's like a filter. And in our squeeze, we talked about it, or I talked about it being kind of guardrails. It kind of keeps you, the guardrails that you put up for yourself. They can be anything, but they kind of direct you. And that's, for me, that's also a good definition. So I chose compassion, and I feel like compassion connects me with others. Creativity keeps me engaged and excited and happy. Kindness, it defines everything for me, and it leads me back to compassion. And then the one I'm really working on, that has been in my life for a long time, but it's really important to me now, is simplicity, and working towards simplicity in every part of my life. And those are my 4. Thank
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I like the simplicity of that,
Mhm.
Melissa. I really do.
Yeah.
Me too. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I'll go next. So one of my biggest things about going through this process and sharing it with Melissa is, my biggest thing, I wouldn't have said this before, is celebrating and sharing joy is a huge value of mine. The next is a gratitude and trust. So those are my top 3. And now that I've really shined a light on what they are, I have the way that they're influencing my life, like especially gratitude is like, just now that it's in the forefront of my mind, I have been speaking words of gratitude a lot more this past week to people, to every, just if I'm thinking it, I'm going to speak it, like it's in the presence of my mind. So gratitude is really super high. And then the one that I'm really working on, the celebrating and sharing joy, is I'm really like thinking about that. Last night we had some friends over, a nice little dinner party, and I really was content. Like, it came to my mind that I am celebrating with my friends.
Yeah.
And, in this podcast, I'm sharing joy, and it's like given me wings to do it a little bit more, to like broaden out a little bit more. So how do I want to share joy with everybody? Like it put me in an expansive mode. And then the trust for me is an undercurrent of trusting the divine, of acceptance, of allowing. Like trust, there's a lot of meaning behind the word trust with a capital T. Mm-hmm.
Amanda, I just want to reflect that, and express gratitude that we get to bear witness to your expanding into these qualities. I feel like I see it every single week, and it is beautiful to experience.
Oh, thanks.
I agree.
Yeah, me too.
And I have a question for you, Amanda.
Yeah.
So the question is around your growth And I know both you and Melissa mentioned that values, of course, can change as we grow. And we all know that you've been on this spiritual journey of growth and development for quite a few years now. Were you able to reflect back to values that you held that were quite different than where you are now? And are there things that you recall that prompted the shift? Personal things outside of just the spiritual studying and commitments.
So the first thing that came to my mind is I wouldn't have even defined it as values, right? it wouldn't have been even in my framework to how to do life. But recognition was an unspoken value, right? Because I wanted to be seen, right? I wanted to be recognized for the cars I drove. I wanted to be recognized for the outfits that I had on. I wanted to be recognized for, it sounds so vain, but like superiority. Like I hate even saying that because I'm like, wow. But, I've always been a nice person. And at the same time, I spent a whole year on letting go of better than and less than, right? Like, so that was a huge value that I didn't, upon reflection, I see it, that I have let go of. Yeah.
And from our time together, you said proving yourself.
Proving, yes. Thank you. And also proving, like the same type of thing, recognition. And then like, I have to strive, I have to prove. That was another big, thank you for remembering that, Melissa. Proving was a big part of it too. And that stemmed from like lack of confidence, right? Lack of like, I think it was a huge part of lack of confidence in myself and not really knowing who I was because of not having to, but that's how I was. I would flex and change and all of that as life unfolded. And then you ask, what was the turning point for me? There was a huge turning point when my friend Dave died. That was like 10, 11 years. My dad died and then Dave died. And it was really a wake-up call for my husband and I. Like, what are we doing? Like, are we living every day or like we want to? Or, what is going on in our lives? And that was a huge turning point. And that's when we decided to completely change our stars.
And Drusilla, we talked a little bit about that in the squeeze, and I had a whole list. I have a whole list of old values, and mine they've completely changed. So they would be hard work, generosity to the point of giving too much. That's how it ended up for me. That was probably the turning point for me. How generosity kind of turned sour for me. Being intellectual, perfection, justice, reliability, being unique, having to be of service all the time. So those are old values that I was given them by my family. I took them on and and they wore me out. But I think it was the right time in my 20s and 30s. I mean, that's the time of life when you are working hard and all that. So I think too, those things have changed just over time, just growing up. So, yes.
Yeah, I agree with you, Melissa. I think growing up, having life's experiences and really learning what you prefer and what you don't prefer really helps us to mold and shape our values.
Yeah. And it's what we're here to do, is to clean up those generational things. We're doing it for our ancestors, for our descendants, for all of life. So it's natural that you would evolve beyond what was handed to you as you became more self-aware and more clear on who you are. And yeah, I really loved that part of the episode, listening to you reflect back on those, because I related to so many of those. Just that whole, it's better to give than to receive, was a big one for me. And so it shows up in those ways that seem great on the surface. They seem respectable. And yeah, so I appreciated you sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you both. I think what it did for me, and listening to it and then listening to you both just now, is that it was a very clear path from your parameters and your guidelines being built on that belief system versus coming from a place of wholeness, which is what I hear your values being today.
Mm.
That's very clear for me.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Drusilla, because as I was looking at the values that I came up with from listening to the squeeze that you did last week and reflecting on, well, what were mine before and how are they different now? That was kind of the differentiation, is that I can see that the values now that I have are all connected, and they're all pointing to God or self-realization, like that awareness of, like, you know, everything is connected and our divinity is all, and just trying to have that self-realization. Whereas before, my values all seemed very separate, and they were more things like God is my first value, then family, then friends, then work. And it was like things. It wasn't, and they seemed like separate, unrelated things. But like, so my values now are authenticity, being unapologetically me. And that means like that self-realization that I alluded to before, and letting go of people pleasing and all the other things that means. And freedom, but you can't be free. You can't express freedom if you're not authentic. And connection is one of my values, but you can't connect with others if you're not authentic. It's not real connection. And trust and faith, which, you know, it's all about recognizing God in us and in everything. Like, it's all really just different words for the same value of just getting to truth. And like, so those God, family, friends, work values seem to be separate things that I had to like sift and sort my time. But that's just, I don't see my values in that way anymore. I don't know if that's clear at all, but.
That's totally
No,
clear,
it is
Morgan.
really, Morgan. And I like how I just had a visual of you talking about each of the values in a way that it built a pyramid. Like the bottom pyramid is the one that we generalize, that you said, like family and friends, and they seem all separate. And then the more you go up to defining them, I do agree that it all just points to source, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we want that connection to source. And I just love the way you just described it. It just created such a visual for me. Yeah, I was thinking the same, because as you were speaking, I'm like, I could call out a lot of different words, but I would be saying the exact same thing that you just said. So it doesn't really matter what I say. It's, because my words would have been honesty and integrity, and then love of self and love of others. But that's still all just the same thing that you just said, Morgan. So I don't know that I have any values outside of what we call those inherent values that were instilled upon us upon birth, is kind of how I would describe it. And kind of everything else, those false beliefs were instilled in us as kind of guidelines of navigating society and prevent ourselves from getting hurt, and defensive behaviors or attitudes that we think are protecting ourselves, which are basically limiting ourselves from truly being authentic at the end of the day. But now I feel like I'm rambling. So, okay, that's it.
Not at all.
Let me
You
ask you
weren't
a
rambling.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't rambling.
No.
Giselle, you said honesty and integrity, right? That's a value.
Mhm.
So specifically, like, does that filter life for you on a daily basis? Do you make decisions about it? Do you think about the value, or is it just something that's in the background that you move forward?
Yeah. I would say luckily you picked that one, because that is the one that I say is the most consistent of my personality.
Mhm.
Like, if people that knew me growing up, they would say that part about me. The other ones, love of others, the other stuff, I don't necessarily think that they would say that that's, the value I held in growing up. Yeah. So to that point, yes, that is something core to who I am. So I don't have to work very hard at it. Um, I told a lie yesterday, and it was
What?
very, very intentional. And I forgave myself instantly. And it was beautiful, because all my life, I don't know why I've always had this firm grasp onto honesty. It was just the thing for me, right? But when I did tell a lie, it would wake me up at night. It would be like, oh my God, people are going to find out. Oh my God, if my friends found out I told this lie, they wouldn't look at me the same. It was all of that. And the lie I told yesterday, I told it with intention, and I told it on purpose, and then I let it go. That's it.
I just got to ask, why did you tell a lie on purpose and with intention?
Because because it was not for me to tell.
Are you hoping it'll come back to you?
The truth was not for one day, know me, and one day I'm probably going to share it, because I probably can't help it. But for now, it's not to be shared. It just, yeah.
Okay.
And it sounds like that might be love of others. Like maybe you're being someone loyal to someone or something.
To self and others.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To self and others. Yeah.
It just seems so out of character for you, Drusilla, to say that you intentionally lied. I just had to ask you. It's just.
And the crazy thing is, I'm so proud of it.
Yay, I think, right?
More will be revealed. Yeah, more will be revealed. Yeah.
Well, let's hear yours, Penny.
Sure. So I really enjoyed the squeeze that you and Amanda and Melissa recorded as well. Thank you for doing that. I think it's I hope everybody goes back and listens to it if they haven't listened to it at this point, because it really does seal the deal for what we're doing today. So it was interesting. As soon as it came out in our chat group that we were going to do values, I thought, oh my gosh, I remember. And 20 years ago in August, actually, my son, my stepson, he was in a program for kids that needed a little help to get through their teenage lives. And they knew that the kid was just the symptom, and that the family was really where all of the work was to be had with the family. And so we put him in a program. I like to say he chose to go into this program because he did, but we put him in this program. And one of the things that they had us do was to create our family values. And so we have this little, I don't know where the cover went, but we created this little box. Oops, we're at the top. Oh yeah. No, okay. It's on the top of the box. Oh, here it is. Gosh. we put our family, and the kids drew pictures of all of us. And then another part of the box was we wrote our family values. And I think probably Hannah drew one and Samantha drew another. David was in the program in Jamaica at the time, but we came up with our family values, and trust was one of them. I've heard you guys saying integrity, honesty, respect, family, mental well-being, and spirituality. And that was, we defined that as happiness in the way I feel about myself and how I am living, and service to others, heard others say that, and health. And that was staying physically fit and active each day. Because sometimes, kids don't want to do any of that. Anyway, it was kind of fun to go back and look at that. I pulled the box out and I looked through all of it, and just to contemplate if some of those are still values, and health is still a total value of mine. And when you were doing the squeeze, also you talked about what really had you energized and feeling good about yourself. And when I was listening to that, it was like completion was something that I felt energized. Like when I completed a project, or I completed a training that I was doing, or like completion, because a lot of times, I don't know about you guys, but I can start things and not complete them. So completion it really gives me a lot of energy. So I know that personal growth and education is really important to me. So that's one that I didn't even consider in this. But and you guys talked a lot about freedom in the episode too. And I have been saying for years, I want freedom in all my relationships. My relationship with myself, my relationship with my body, my relationship with my family, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with food, my relationship with friends. I want freedom in all of those relationships. So I just call it freedom in all my relationships is definitely a value of mine. And I loved, Melissa, you said compassion. That is definitely, I've been in touch with so many compassionate human beings in the last 20 years that I realize and I feel I am that person too, and I can still grow to be that more. But I just love being around somebody who is so kind and compassionate to me. It just makes me feel so good. And I want to be that person for others too. And then I did say self-love and self-acceptance, because that's something that I've struggled with. I haven't always loved and accepted myself or others. And so that's my values. And, some of these other ones still hold true. I still like honesty and trust and faith and, respect, and got to respect myself in order to get respect from others and stuff like that. And of course, what we're all saying too is it all just really boils up to having faith and in source energy. And when we can really value that and trust that, life just flows. Yeah.
So, Penny, what do you mean by freedom in relationships? So, what does freedom in a relationship look like, feel like? Like, what do you mean by that?
I guess the best way that I can explain it, I don't know if you've heard Hoda Coffee's, she has an ad on radio or something. It's for her podcast or something. It's like that part where you exhale, like where you just like have complete, it just feels good. And there's no restrictions. There's no, it's just freedom. Like there's no requirements. There's no restrictions. There's no, it's just when you exhale like that, it just feels good. I can't explain it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like comfortable. Like there's no judgments. It's free of judgments. It's free of all that.
I do. I like that.
If you don't mind my adding, that's when you first asked her the question, Amanda. That's what I thought about with myself telling the lie and being okay with it.
Yeah.
That's freedom within myself, and knowing beyond that, I'm way more than that little lie I told, right? There's freedom in that.
Yeah.
It means nothing. It meant, to the core of what it meant was, I did something, and it wasn't to harm anyone, not even to harm myself, and it wasn't out of malicious intent, none of that. And the walking away with that without the judgment was a big deal for me, and that's freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Penny, so moving forward, now that we're talking about this, hot freedom in relationship, moving forward, does that mean when you find yourself maybe in a new relationship or an old relationship, if it doesn't feel free, you're like, nope? Or so how are you going to use this tool of freedom in relationship?
So I ask myself questions like, is this moving me forward in life, or is this taking me backwards? Is this filling me up, or is it not feeling good? And I have to be honest with you. There are times when I say, fuck it, I'm going for it anyway. Like when it comes around food, I know there's certain foods that I don't have freedom. I don't feel good, and I don't, I'm not fulfilled when I eat it, but I still eat it. So, I'm a human being. That's part of my humanness. But yeah, so I ask those questions myself, like, okay, Penny, what is this going to get you if you do this next thing you're about to do? Is it going to bring you freedom, or is it going to make you a prisoner?
Amanda, your question made me think of, in that book, We Should All Be Millionaires, she recommends doing a yearly friend review. And I think you could do it for all of your relationships, but it's a process where you write down the 5 people who you spend most of your time with, and you evaluate the friendship based on questions like, was this friend there for me this year? Did we have fun bonding times this year? Does this friend frequently use our time together to complain about their life, but then do nothing about it? Do we still have similar interests? Do I look forward to spending time with them? Do I feel energized or drained after spending time with them? Is it a mutually beneficial relationship? So it's just,
awesome.
That's what it made me think of. Yeah. Like, does it feel weighty and burdensome when you make plans to go be around someone? That would be an indicator that there's not really a lot of freedom in that relationship, I think.
Yeah.
You would have to have a lot of courage to ask yourself those questions, right?
Why?
Why? Because if you start asking those questions, that means some of them people got to go, right?
Hopefully not.
Do we need to do one for the lemonettes?
Oh, maybe. Oh my God.
I would keep
you would all make the cut for me.
But Morgan, that is just what a great way to describe freedom. Because I have old friends that, I moved, so I have new friends here, and that's a little different because I'm in a different space in my life. But I really did come to a point where I'm just not going to reach out to people anymore. I didn't go through the checklist like you said, Morgan, but do these people, when you were asking those questions, it was like, no, none of that. No. And it's just interesting. They're not in my lives anymore. But the cojones to do that when they're in my city, it would be a whole different experience. I hope it would. And I hope that my spiritual growth, my authenticity would show up differently. Yeah.
And I don't think the friend review, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because obviously if someone has just had a baby, or if they've just gone through a divorce, or, they're not going to be showing up for you in the same way. So, none of it is completely black and white, but
you got to give people grace.
How about if you filter your friends and your situation through your values?
Well, that's exactly right.
That's why we're doing this, right? We're doing a life filter through the values.
It was really interesting. I just, the first part of July, I went to my 45th anniversary of graduating from high school. And,
Wow.
and I was so excited to go and see everybody. But I can honestly say, I better be careful. I don't know if anybody's listening.
That you
Freedom,
love
Penny.
all of the
Yeah,
people that
freedom.
you-
Like, yeah, there were certain people that I really enjoyed seeing and getting caught up with. And there were others that kind of weighed me down. And I'm happy that we see each other every 5 years,
Yeah.
or only have to see each other every 5 years, some of the people. But yeah, it was interesting. Because I really did value going back to my high school reunion every year, every 5 years since I graduated. And I'm kind of rethinking that now. I mean, does it really fill me up or not? Is it really meeting with well, I guess I can meet it with compassion, right? Everybody is on their own journey. And I can that's probably the best thing that I really worked at actually while I was there, is to have compassion for the people that I didn't quite see eye to eye with, that had maybe different values than me, because we all have different values. And it's okay. Everybody gets to live life the way they want to. And it's not up to me to decide how that is. But yeah, that was interesting to reflect on that reunion.
Now that's a great point. So do we, and I'm not sure if I have the answer, but do we then actively choose our friends and people that are in our circle based on our values? Or do we, now that we are expressing ourselves authentically, yeah, I think I said that incorrectly, but
authentically.
do we then just accept the values of others and not judge them based on theirs, and therefore have more freedom in those relationships? Or do they just weed themselves out based on our values and how we present ourselves?
Priscilla, that is some next level shit, girl. Really? Like, like you have to, that is because, like, to show up, there's steps to it. For me, there's steps to it. Like I was saying, like being in the city and being around it. For me personally, I would have to be so authentically comfortable with me to have people that I didn't see eye to eye with in my sphere and not be affected by them. There's real spiritual growth that has had to happen. It does happen for me. I'm getting better at it. But I think there's steps to it. Like in the beginning, taking myself out of my environment really, allowed me to live authentically and show up like that. But at the beginning, I did need to remove myself. I did need to remove people.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, Amanda.
No,
I mean, I think that's as we evolve and we grow and change, people come into our lives for a reason and a season, and sometimes they leave our lives too.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that when we are more in alignment with our values, that we have a more fulfilled and satisfying life.
Mhm.
And we just live happier and joy-filled, much happier and joy-filled. Yeah.
I think if you are living according to your values and really letting that be your guardrails, as you were talking about, Melissa, then the people in your life automatically have to come up and meet you where you are, or they will filter out of your life without any efforting on your part. Or maybe you will be guided to do something to make them no longer in your life. I mean, when I was really focusing on healing my people-pleasing tendencies, like as I became more aware of them and how it's not authentic, it's not actually loving to others to be that way. Like I started kind of doing this inventory without realizing that's what I was doing. And 3 clear friendships rose to my mind as being unsupportive and like like I was in maintaining these friendships out of that people pleasing capacity. Like I couldn't be seen as the bitch or the unkind one who would just drop her friends. You know what I mean? So, like I made a conscious choice to not pursue those friendships, not call them, say no to invitations to hanging out because I really didn't want to. And if I had said yes, that would be people pleasing and inauthentic and things like that. And then one of the 3 friendships was harder to let go because I really loved this. I loved all of them, but like I really valued that friendship and I wasn't willing to see that it had evolved and that our values had grown apart from each other. So that one was a little bit harder. And I kind of got kicked around by situations and circumstances that forced me to look at it because I wasn't quite ready or willing to look at it in the same way that I did with the others. But that was my experience with it. Like it'll take care of itself if you don't take care of it.
Well, and that's a really good point, Morgan, that you make. I think, because the plan is already designed for us and being carried out, right? We just have to come along with it. But I think this is like what we're going into now is like a whole nother episode. Like, we've defined our values now, living them and living to them is like a whole nother process. Yeah. Yeah. So what do y'all think? Is this a wrap?
Let's, Drusilla, did we answer your question? Did you have anything else you wanted to say? Because it was a really good
I think
question.
that was perfect because what I heard was there can be an organic way of doing it and there can be an intentional way. And that's, I think that's the story of growth. A lot of things can come with pain when you're resisting it, right? And other things can be a little more organic when you're aware of your intentions and act accordingly. So yeah, answer was very clear. Thank you.
Well, that's a beautiful way to wrap our session today. I love it. Episode 84 on values. So I have one of Penny's Post-its, and it is values come from a place of wholeness as we grow and change. I think that's really what we talked about, looking at our values from when we were younger and now what they've become as we've developed some wisdom. Yeah. So, beautiful, beautiful episode, everyone. Thank you so much for bringing your best selves. And I loved everyone's values. And to our listeners out there, we hope that you can sit down and write out your values if you haven't already done them. And or if you have, just take a look at them, review them, see if they still fit, or if you've grown and changed and you want to create something even more in alignment with who you are today. So we always are encouraging you all to let us know your feedback from our episodes. If there's anything you'd like us to have a session on or episode on, we'd love to do that for you as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And here's to living to our values as best we can. Day in and day out, right? Have a really great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.